And we are live. Welcome to the Pilgrim Antiracism Book Club. We at Pilgrim have been reading since the murder of George Floyd in our All Church Read and Antiracism Book Club. Last year we read White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo, and then we read Caste by Isabel Wilkerson. And last week we read The Fire Next Time by James Baldwin. And tonight and the next two Tuesday evenings, we will be reading Notes of a Native Son by James Baldwin. And tonight we're focusing our attention on part 1. And next week, part 2, and the week after that, part 3. And then on the first Tuesday of March, we will have a conversation within our book group of where do we go from here? What do we do from here? We've done a lot of intellectual work by our reading, some emotional work through our conversations, and then it'll be a time to say, what do we actually do? So I'm going to share my screen and share a couple of passages from this first part of Notes of a Native Son, and then make some brief remarks. So let me do that so that everybody can read along. And here we are. Okay. Our first section comes from the essay, Everybody's Protest Novel. And when I read this passage, I thought it was just the perfect passage for our book club as kind of a check on ourselves, because he addresses this question of our putting all of our eggs in the intellectual basket, into the social basket, into the head basket, and sealing off our conversation from the real world. And so I wanted to share this passage with us as we begin our evening. The protest novel, so far from being disturbing, is an accepted and comforting aspect of the American scene, ramifying that framework we believe to be so necessary. Whatever unsettling questions are raised are evanescent, titillating, remote. But this has nothing to do with us. It is safely ensconced in the social arena. Indeed, it has nothing to do with anyone. So that finally we receive a very definite thrill of virtue from the fact that we are reading such a book at all. This report from the pit reassures us of its reality and its darkness, and of our own salvation. And as long as such books are being published, an American once said to me, everything will be all right. Well, we certainly have had a rash of novels, or not necessarily novels, but books published in the last year. And it's been our focus. And I can't help but think that some of us do gain a certain, or as he puts it, definite thrill of virtue from the fact that we are reading such a book at all. But we all know that this is just the beginning of the work. One reason that I have encouraged us to persist in this reading exercise is that I think that we really have to prepare our minds. We've not had this level and depth of discussion in society. And we're really going to talk about what needs to be done. We've got to be prepared, because as you can tell from reading Baldwin, what must be done will be so radical that I don't want us to walk up and look over the edge and change our mind about being committed. So these books are to help us prepare ourselves to really understand the depth and the radical nature of what has to be done if we're going to make a change in our world. The second passage that struck me comes from the essay, Many Thousands Gone. And in this passage, Baldwin, in my opinion, issues a challenge to white people about how they think about and see Black people, and a separate challenge to Black people about how we look and see and understand ourselves and our identity. He writes on page 38 and following, "It is this image, living yet, which we perpetually seek to evade with good work. And this image, which makes of all our good works an intolerable mockery, the nigger, black, brutal, consumed with hatred as we are consumed with guilt, cannot thus be blotted out. He stands at our shoulders when we give our maid her wages. It is his hand we fear we are taking when struggling to communicate with the current intelligent Negro. His stench, as it were, which fills our mouths with salt as the monument is unveiled in honor of the latest Negro leader. Each generation has shouted behind him, 'Nigger,' as he walked our streets. It is he whom we would rather our sisters did not marry. He is banished into the vast and wailing outer darkness whenever we speak of the purity of our women, of the sanctity of our homes, of American ideals. What is more, he knows it. He is indeed the native son. He is the nigger. Let us refrain from inquiring at the moment whether or not he actually exists, for we believe that he exists. Whenever we encounter him amongst us in the flesh, our faith is made perfect, and his necessary and bloody end is executed with a mystical ferocity of joy. But there is a complementary faith among the damned, which involves their gathering of the stones with which those who walk in the light shall stone them. Or there exists among the intolerably degraded the perverse and powerful desire to force into the arena of the actual those fantastic crimes of which they have been accused, achieving their vengeance and their own destruction through making the nightmare real. The American image of the Negro lives also in the Negro's heart. And this is the challenge to Black people. And when he has surrendered to this image, life has no other possible reality. Then he, like the white enemy with whom he will be locked one day in mortal struggle, has no means save this of asserting his identity. This is why Bigger's murder of Mary can be referred to as an act of creation. Why, once this murder has been committed, he can feel for the first time that he is living fully and deeply as a man was meant to live. And there is, I should think, no Negro living in America who has not felt, briefly or for long periods, with anguish sharp or dull, in varying degrees and to varying effect, simple, naked, and unanswerable hatred, who is not wanted to smash any white face he may encounter in a day, to violate out of motives of the cruelest vengeance their women, to break the bodies of all white people and bring them low as that dust into which he himself has been and is being trampled. No Negro who has not had to make his own precarious adjustment to the nigger who surrounds him and to the nigger in himself. James Baldwin, Notes of a Native Son. Baldwin spares no one in his assessment of America. He challenges Black and white alike to look at the myth that we have created about ourselves and about each other. and to dismantle that myth to find the humanity and the real human being underneath these stereotypes. I find it really fascinating when he says, it really doesn't matter whether such a monster as we have created exists or not, because we believe he exists. It echoed the words of uh, Ted Cruz on the Senate floor on January 6th, the same day of the insurrection, when he said, it doesn't matter whether the election was actually fraudulent. It only matters that people believe that it was fraudulent. And we saw how that belief created an assault on the democracy of America, unlike we have witnessed since the Civil War. And so if an erroneous belief can produce the insurrection that we all witnessed on January 6th, just think for a minute what the erroneous belief of white people about Black people has done for 400 years. I'll end my remarks, and I'll end our Facebook Live broadcast. And if you're interested in joining our book club, you can go to our events page or contact Pilgrim at pilgrimucc.org. Thank you.